To get this started. So not quite a year ago, I had a conversation with some good friends of the museum, Christine and Celeste, members of the Sassenach Society of South Jersey. Any Outlander fans in the crowd out here today? Yeah. Good. And we were like, we have this relationship with the St. Andrew's Society of Philadelphia, which we'll be talking about a little bit this evening, and just kind of hatched this idea of, wouldn't it be interesting if we celebrate St. Andrew's Day at the Museum of the American Revolution? And it's your birthday. I can't say happy birthday in Gaelic, but I'll bet somebody in the audience can. And so we started talking. Celeste and Christine thought, we have a lot of people in the Sassenach Society, big Outlander fans. They'd form a core who would put an event together. Now is the sad moment, I have to say, that of Christine and Celeste, one of them made a bad decision tonight. And I hope you're watching tonight, Christine, because we're all going to boo you for choosing to go to Disney World instead of being at the Museum of the American Revolution. So my role right now, before we kick off the music, is three things, and I'm going to try and remember what they are. One is, what the heck is St. Andrew's Day, and who was St. Andrew, other than the namesake of my son Evans, the big tall guy in the red check over there, Andrew Evans Stevenson. Talk a little bit about the St. Andrew's Society of Philadelphia, and then introduce, most importantly, the house band, the Chivalrous Crickets, who we're so excited to have tonight. So could I have, for those of you who are able to see the image, this is a wonderful 18th century caricature of St. Andrew. It's part of a series of 4 cartoons that were done in the mid-18th century. It is from the British Museum, and it's got St. Andrew. He's got a broadsword over his shoulder with a sheep's head stuck on it. He's got all the trappings of a Scotsman, bottle of whiskey, pistols, sitting astride his unicorn as he rides off for a great evening of mirth. And then I think the next image, just to remind you that it's not, you've probably heard of another saint, St. Patrick before, right? On St. Patrick's Day, everyone is Irish, they say, and I hear it's pretty big in Philadelphia. Boston vies for its attention. But there is also, of course, St. David, who is the patron saint of Wales, and St. George, the patron saint of England. And all 4 of these saints in 18th century Philadelphia had societies, charitable philanthropic societies that gathered around these nationalities. And of course, the one near and dear to my heart, of course, is the St. Andrew's Society of Philadelphia, of which I'm honored to be a member, founded in 1747. Philadelphia was very innovative. We had this immigrant from Boston named Benjamin Franklin, who was really into founding societies, voluntary societies, to deal with society's problems. This is before the era of big government and experts, right? And he said there's a lot of power in gathering together and trying to deal with the problems around you. So we all know, we have seen the fire marks on these houses in Society Hill, right? All these voluntary associations. Well, the St. Andrew's Society, founded by Scottish immigrants and ultimately descendants of those Scottish immigrants, gathered together as a charitable organization. They met quarterly, but then always on St. Andrew's Day, November 30th, to raise funds to help poor Scottish immigrants, widows, pay burial expenses, etc. And that society tomorrow night will be gathering at the Union League for the 275th annual meeting and dinner, which is absolutely incredible. And I just showed it for those of you who can see the screens. The Philadelphia newspapers printing these notices of the meetings of the St. Andrew's Society. They met in a lot of the taverns around here around the time of the Revolution, and afterwards met at the City Tavern and the Masonic Lodge that was right behind City Tavern on Lodge Alley. Now, if we look at the next one, I just wanted to point out that you don't need to feel left out if you just figure out that you're just American. So, Hannah, can we have that next slide? Nope, back. Oh, Maybe I just can't read. All right, there it is, St. Tammany. So there was actually a society founded in Philadelphia for the patron saint of native-born Americans, St. Tammany, named for Tammany, the Delaware Indian chief who you've seen his statue at the end of Market Street, right? Who met with William Penn and sold the land that Philadelphia was built on. And on May 1st, this was St. Tammany's Day. And if you were a native-born American, Pennsylvania, you would wear a deer tail in your hat or a piece of deer's fur, and you would walk around and do what all of the other societies do, which was get really drunk and have a great time. Exactly. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about the St. Andrew's Society after our first set here with the Chivalrous Crickets. So really, my job is to turn it over to Fiona Gillespie, who is the leading light. Is that fair to say, or will they look askance at me if I say
manager.
it that way? Yeah. And so please give a warm welcome to the Chivalrous Crickets.
Fred Franz, come you doon by lawn and saw you Geordie whelps and his bonny woman, and were he at the place called the Kittle he saw you Geordie's grace riding on a goosey. Geordie, he's a man, there is little doodle, he's done all he can. What can do without it? Down there came a blade, thinking like my lordy, drive a trade at the lumber Geordie. Oh, the clock bad lightly made, we need a fucking day to walk. It makes little difference for me, I tend to glad, but it falls on son, he has melons breed, but we hate Geordie. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. We are the Chivalrous Crickets. We are so thrilled to be here tonight with you all, celebrating this occasion, first annual celebration of this celebration here in this room. Maybe we'll be here 275 years from now. All of us, same people, we'll play. It'll be great. That song that you just heard is a wonderful, biting piece of political satire from the time that George I took over the crown after Queen Anne passed. And that was the Jacobites singing to each other. And I'll kind of give you the translation very quickly. It says, if you've come through France recently, or from France recently, you might have seen George I and his mistress on their way to England. Especially you would have seen him if you had visited the cat house. Okay. And so that's George I and the woman, one of his courtiers, and this is first line of Hanover's, who later was named the Duchess of Kendal, but at the time he was being made a lot of fun of. Then they say, I'm sure George I is quite a man. I'm sure there was nothing he could have done about the fact that this Swedish courtier ended up in his bed. We'll just say it like that. And then they say, but you know what? If he has kids, we'll take him because those kids cannot assume the throne because they're not legitimate. And so then it gets a bit more serious. They say jockey, meaning James Francis Edward Stuart, is going to France, and there he's going to fundraise and come back belted, suited up, and lordly. Brawly may they thrive, so well may he do to dance the jig with Geordie, fight with Geordie. And then it says, hey there, Sandy Don, hey there, Cockalorum, which means he's calling out various major generals and leaders within the British Army and making fun of them. Cockalorum is a very little man. And then they say, our Highland soldiers are going to leap and dance, or the bumma Geordie. So anyway, that's a great song from the early 1700s. I'm going to turn it over to my sister, Fiona Gillespie, who is the manager of our band and is our resident historian, and she will take us forward.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, my sister did a translation of that song, so there's a lot of Scots dialect in there, so we thank her for that. A couple words. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of this history, but if anyone isn't, just names that you're going to hear over and over tonight. Geordie. Actually, the next song we're doing is called Geordie, and that song is not about specifically King George, but what that is a nickname for the name George. It's a Scottish nickname, and it was a nickname before King George, but when King George took over from the Stuart line, who was ruling before James II was deposed in the 1680s, that name became a derogatory term for anyone who was a supporter of the British crown in Scotland. So in Scotland, people who did not want William of Orange in charge, or the Hanoverian line that came over, they called other Scots who did support them Geordies. So that's one name that you'll hear over and over again. The other one that you're going to hear a lot tonight is Charlie. Bonnie Prince Charlie was the great-grandson of James II. And so a century later, after he was the last Stuart to effectively rule the throne, there were many, many uprisings and rebellions over and over again by the faction of the Scots who wanted the Stuart line to be back in charge and wanted their own king. And so Bonnie Prince Charlie was the very last of these that they tried in their fifth rebellion a century later in 1745 to get back on the throne, and it failed like all the rest. But he was sort of this national idealized hero. He never lived in Scotland. He grew up in Rome, actually, because his family was, of course, in exile. So I'll talk more about him later, but that's just some historical reference. A lot of this is from the time when the Catholic Stuart family was taken off the throne by the Protestant Parliament, and for various reasons, some religious and some more political, a faction of Scots and a lot of the Irish and Welsh wanted the Stuart family back. So that's the era that we're dealing with here. And you'll learn more about General Hugh Mercer later and how he was involved in this. And of course, he's the connection to Philadelphia that we have. So this next song, Geordie, the origins of this song are a bit murky. There is evidence of it being a ballad from much further back than the time of George I, when that derogatory nickname I talked about came into usage. So some people claim this is a song about a man named Geordie as a nickname being tried for the killing of someone in a battle, and his wife comes to save him, which is what the story is. And other people say, no, this is a song that's much older than that. It was about some other feud at some other time. But long and the short of it is, this is the story of a man who is being tried to be hanged or beheaded, I forget. And he writes a letter to his wife to come save him, and she does. So this is Geordie.
There was a battle in the north, and nobles there were many, and they have killed Sir Charlie Hay and laid the blame on Geordie. Oh, he has written a letter long, and he sent it to his lady. You must come up to Edinburgh town to see what news of Geordie.
Next up, you're going to hear about that very same Bonnie Prince Charlie. In this instance, when he first was coming over to join this rebellion, this movement, he came over through Italy via France, and then they sailed around as secretly as they could to the Outer Hebrides, which are islands off the west coast of Scotland, dipping out into the Atlantic Ocean. Did I say that right?
West Coast.
West Coast, yes. And in this song, which is historically accurate that event happened, but a little bit fantasized, by the Gaels, which was a group of like very, very old cultural group that had been living in Scotland for a long time. They imagined him arriving on a ship laden with gold and silver, and sort of like tossing out goodies, like scones, to the crowd as he came into the harbor, and a silver whistle was played for his arrival. I have a wooden one, so we're cheating a little bit. But yes, the Gaels, this group had an ancient prophecy about someone coming in and who would be their leader and restore them to their rightful place as like the true inhabitants of Scotland. And so this arrival of Bonnie Prince Charlie, after a century of all of this other political strife, which really had nothing to do with them or that, became their emblem, became their idea of this prophecy being fulfilled. So that song is a bit of that fantasy and a bit of that history.
We are going to go into a tune afterwards called Bonnie Prince Charlie. If you haven't surmised yet, Fiona and I are sisters. Shocker. And so we started playing music together when we were 5 or 6, and we both started on the whistle. Somebody took a whistle out of my hands and said, no more of that. But the tune Bonnie Prince Charlie is the first tune that we both learned in this tradition.
Yes.
To Scotland prepare.
much, and thank you to our little dancer.
Thank you so much. We're going to pause momentarily now for a moment for the St. Andrew's Society to take back over and. They want at 7. Yes. So yes, we'll be back in 15 minutes. Woo!
Pipes and drums of the St. Andrew's Society of Philadelphia. I'm very pleased to welcome President Mark Lupke of the St. Andrew's Society of Philadelphia. And a special guest who's actually pre-gaming this evening with the Society, and tomorrow night will be at the 275th dinner will be our honored guest, Major General Alistair Bruce, who is the Governor of Edinburgh Castle. It's nice to welcome you here. And I don't know if we properly thanked Delaney for that dance. Well, I wanted to say a few words about the sort of reason for the season, why we're honoring this long implement of destruction here. The whole purpose for the evening, other than I really like parties and wearing a kilt. Could we, so you've heard a bit about the Jacobites today, and I don't think I need to bring anybody up to speed with British History 101, but there's, of course, this dynastic struggle between the Stuarts, who were the ancient kings of Scotland, and the Hanoverian dynasty, the usurpers from Germany, right? And of course, all of this came to a head in the last battle actually fought on British soil. I believe I'm correct in saying that, sir. Was at the Battle of Culloden in April, cold April of 1746. And the image you're seeing is a painting from the Royal Collection, painted by David Morier, that is, I believe, entitled An Incident During the Late Rebellion, and it is showing the Jacobite clans attacking Barrel's regiment at Culloden. Now, a young man who was fighting there that day was a man named Hugh Mercer, was born in 1726 in Pitsligo in the northeast in Aberdeenshire. Went to Edinburgh to study medicine, became an MD just in time for the Jacobite Rebellion. He graduated, I think, literally in 1744, and in 1745, he got a new job. He was an assistant surgeon serving under Bonnie Prince Charlie in the Jacobite army, was present at Culloden. And that day did not go well for the Jacobite cause, as all of you Outlander fans know, and all you history buffs know. And so he fled. He actually was able to get aboard a ship and fled to Philadelphia, and in 1747 landed here as one of those poor indigent Scots. But he had a skill, and that was this trade of a physician. So he went out west of the Susquehanna River, eventually founding a town called Mercersburg, Pennsylvania, that many of you may well know. Fought as an officer for the Pennsylvania forces during the French and Indian War, where he got to know people like a young Virginian named George Washington and others, made his connections, eventually settles in Fredericksburg, Virginia, where you can visit the apothecary and place where he practiced medicine. He was a part of a Masonic lodge that would produce 7 generals for the Continental Army. And the 8th was the Marquis de Lafayette, who was made an honorary Mason there when he returned in 1824. So this is a guy who lived a lot even before the Revolutionary War began. I think I might even have a picture of him. Well, he's down there laying on the ground in that painting. So his moment, he went from, they say, how beautiful the dawn, how sad the evening. He is, of course, made colonel of the 3rd Virginia Regiment in 1776, made a general serving under George Washington during the fighting around New York in 1776. He's with that army that retreats through New Jersey. Actually, the very week that we're in now was when the last remnants of Washington's defeated army were marching toward Trenton and crossing the Delaware, not the way we think of crossing the Delaware, but the other direction. It's one of the lowest moments in the Revolutionary fight, those 8 long years of war. He is credited with coming up with the idea of crossing the Delaware to attack the Hessians at Trenton. And I think because it's St. Andrew's Day, we should give him credit. Don't you think so, President? Yes. Fought in the Battle of Trenton, starting the 10 crucial days of fighting. But he met his end as a result of the Battle of Princeton on January 3rd of 1777. Mercer was put in command of the lead elements that are trying to escape the British, who, by lighting bonfires at night in Trenton and then sneaking out in the middle of the night to try to hit the rear of the column. And they come up on the baggage of the British Army in Princeton. Mercer leads that attack. He's commanding, among his troops are many men from this neighborhood who were members of the Philadelphia Associators, people like Charles Wilson Peale, James Peale, and others, a lot of the tradesmen who you admire their work when you go to the Philadelphia Museum of Art. The carvers of furniture, the carpenters, the painters were with those troops. But they ran into the 17th Regiment afoot, which counterattacked, and Mercer, his horse was disabled. He was thrown from his horse as he was trying to get up, and he was in the rear of his retreating troops. The 17th Regiment caught up with him. The British troops who surrounded him thought that they had caught George Washington, and he refused to surrender. He defended himself with a silver-hilted sword that he'd received from the city of Philadelphia in gratitude for his French and Indian War service. The sword is sitting on this table in front of us. He refused to surrender. He was bayoneted repeatedly. He was clubbed by these British soldiers and left mortally wounded on the field. There you see the inscription that is recorded on the hilt of the sword. Now, he lingered for a number of days, but as a physician, he knew that his wounds were mortal. His body was brought into Philadelphia, and it was so shocking to see how he had been treated that his body was actually placed on display at the City Tavern, just a block where we are, and thousands of Philadelphians passed through and gave their respects to General Mercer. He was then buried at Christ Church. But in 1841, when many of those interments were being moved, the St. Andrew's Society of Philadelphia, already an august and old venerable organization of which Mercer had been a member, paid to disinter his remains to erect a monument in his honor. And the daughter-in-law of the French and Indian War veteran Jacob Morgan, who he had given that sword to as he was laying in Princeton dying, and bequeathed that sword to her, she gave that sword to the St. Andrew's Society. And it has been brought out every year on St. Andrew's Day as part of the relics of the society for this wonderful dinner that we'll all be enjoying tomorrow night. And so I became aware of the sword years ago doing an exhibition about the French and Indian War. I met a now departed friend named Jim Bishop, who was a longtime member, former president of the society, who felt that it's an object that had such significance that it should be shared with the public. And so it was through Jim's efforts and many of the people who are here this evening that we were able to come up with an arrangement where 363 days a year it would be on display at the Museum of the American Revolution. It has been viewed by more than 1 million people now, which is probably more than many more times the number of eyeballs that have been on it in the rest of its history. So I just wanted to invite Mark, if you have anything to share about our relationship and the Society's activities today.
So the St. Andrews Society was formed in 1747 at the Tun Tavern, which is only a couple of blocks from here. And it was formed in part because of Culloden and the number of distressed Scots who were looking for a new home, who came to the United, well, it wasn't the United States then, who came to America, and we assisted those Scots in distress. And it is an enormous pleasure to see our job as a steward of historical relics have this relic be a part of the Museum of the American Revolution under President Scott Stevenson, to make sure that its history is retained, it is continued and communicated. And we are extremely happy to be a part of that.
So I guess it's time to propose a toast. I have a dry quaich that has nothing in it, but I hope some of you have something to toast. Or we can do, yes. So I'd just like to say something about some of the objects that are in the back of the room that I hope you all have enjoyed seeing this evening. Do we have an image? Keep going. There we are. Willie Leslie, I'd like to just say a few words about, because, of course, Hugh Mercer was not the only Scotsman who fell on the field at Princeton, and not all of them, although lots of them were wearing red. William Leslie was the son of the Earl of Leven from Fife, near Edinburgh, just across the Firth of Forth, and he had a very interesting connection to this city and to the revolutionary movement. If you can add Benjamin Rush, many of you will know Dr. Benjamin Rush from Philadelphia. Benjamin Rush, when he was studying medicine in Edinburgh in the mid-1760s, befriended the family, the Leslie family, the Earls of Leven. He fell head over heels in love for William Leslie's younger sister, Jeannie. And probably if he was from a higher station in life, more aristocratic origins, they would have probably started a family. But he was very affected by this relationship. So when young William, he was 25 in 1776, when he lands in New York, he writes back and forth, you could get letters back and forth through the lines, to his dear friend Benjamin Rush. And they're kind of trying to persuade one another that they've made a wrong choice here. William writes back to his family saying, Benjamin has not only signed this Declaration of Independence, but he has declared himself an enemy of our sovereign. Rush writes to Leslie and has a letter and says, if you fall into the hands of the Americans, keep this letter in your pocket. And if you can get it to General Washington, who's a dear friend of mine, or General Lee, Charles Lee, who I know, they'll protect you and you'll be able to come to Philadelphia, and while you're a prisoner of war, you can live with me in Philadelphia. So a deep bond that went across. They talked about how they were, while they were political enemies, they remained dear personal friends. So ironically, William Leslie was actually part of that company of the 17th Regiment who came head-to-head with Mercer, and it's probably the men in his company who bayoneted and mortally wounded Mercer. But William was killed in one of the first volleys from the Americans. His servant actually put him into a baggage cart, and they tried to get him off the field of battle, but ultimately Washington counterattacked, and they were pushed off the field. And it wasn't until the next day, when the Americans sort of stopped to catch their breath and someone looked in the cart, they realized there was a dead British officer in there, and they were able, the soldiers who were captured told them who this was. They got the word to Benjamin Rush, who went and made sure that he was buried in Pluckerman, New Jersey, with the honors of war. And you can see he actually wrote to the Earl of Leven asking permission to erect a headstone and to compose an epitaph for him. And so it's just a good reminder, I think, of the fact that wars separate families, people fall on different sides of the battlefield who in other circumstances could be dear friends. And there are a lot of places in the world right now, and I'm thinking of Ukraine in particular, people who are suffering greatly while we're enjoying our good society here together. So if you have a glass, or if you'd like to pretend you have a glass of something, I'd just like to raise a toast to the St. Andrews Society of Philadelphia. Warm friendships are better than war. Slanchava. Now it's my pleasure to ceremonially hand the sword back to the possession of the St. Andrews Society, and then we will return to our regularly scheduled programming with the Chivalrous Crickets. So thank you.
What is your tartan?
It's Macmillan.
Oh, this is Logan.
Logan is a beautiful target.
It's pointed in the right direction. The red nose. Thank you for being here. Looking forward to dinner tomorrow night.
Take a microphone for me, too.
And make sure she dances up here next time. We want to all see her.
Hi everyone, we're going to let our member of Anna take over for a moment here and tell you about another type of Scottish pipes.
So what you just heard were the Scottish Highland pipes. And these are their friendly indoor cousin called the Scottish small pipes. They're based off of an instrument that was made in 1757 for a Scottish colonel named Archibald Montgomery, who then, that same year in 1757, took a troop of Highland soldiers and 30 bagpipe players to America to participate in the American theater of the 7 Years' War, the French and Indian War. He then went on to fight alongside George Washington at the Battle of Fort Duquesne, potentially with his copy of this instrument alongside him. They function mostly the same way. The original didn't have bellows. They were mouth blown, just like the pipes you just saw. But these bellows were in addition to bagpiping culture in the 18th century, particularly known with the Irish pipes, the uilleann pipes, but also with the French musette that actually Bonnie Prince Charlie himself played. He didn't play any Scottish pipes, he played the French musette. But that was bellows blown like this. So I will play, another thing about Archibald Montgomery, he was also the patron of Robert Burns, who some of you, I trust, are familiar with. So now I'm going to play an air called The Flowers of the Forest. It's...
Really rude.
Please.
Just before you do that, because that's going to make me cry. Can I just say, having been brought to the front here, before I disappear, I'm the governor of Edinburgh Castle, and you had a picture of my house up there. I'm a soldier, of course. Because, thank you very much. I'm a soldier, of course. I'm a general now. But I'm desperately proud of the links that Scotland has with America. And it means so much for me to be here and to see the way we share this extraordinary culture that is across either side of this amazing Atlantic. And it doesn't matter what our ancestry is. I descend directly from King Robert the Bruce, who was King of Scots from 1306 to the 1320s. And we defeated the English in 1314. and at the Battle of Bannockburn. And all the descendants of Robert Bruce and those who fought with him for Scotland at that occasion formed the two armies that fought against each other in 1745. And it's so sad that through division, we find ourselves not as happy as we could be. But what's wonderful is that out of division comes some strength, always. There is a strength and a unity that comes back. And look what's been achieved by Scots here. Look what Scots and so many other people from around the world have created here in America. So it's a great privilege for me to be here. And if you come to Edinburgh and see the great lofty fortress, which I call home, thank you for having me here tonight, and have a wonderful time. I'm so sorry.
Thank you very much. No.
Oh, I never talk about politics. There we go.
Scottish music. These are two Kentucky tunes, and it seems rather random, but well, of course, right. So as Scots-Irish folks were coming down the river, coming down the Ohio River and settling in Simon Kenton's footsteps and Daniel Boone's footsteps along the river, we had many Scots-Irish folk in Ohio and Kentucky and on to Missouri and whatnot through Indiana. But these tunes, the first of which is called Mud Fence, and the second of which is called Dry and Dusty, are both come to us in these versions through a very esteemed Kentucky fiddle player named J.P. Fraley, and I came to them through a good friend of mine, Matt Stallard, who maybe he's watching, maybe he's not, but he was a professor of mine at Ohio University, and he actually studied Milton and a lot of beautiful literature, but he grew up in Kentucky playing fiddle tunes at his grandfather's barber shop, and one of his grandfather's clients was J.P. Fraley. So he is kind of my direct link to this esteemed Kentucky heritage. And we, as the Crickets, we really love to blend all of these different Celtic tributaries into one beautiful river. And the main reason that specifically we chose these tunes, Dry and Dusty, is, according to J.P. Fraley, George Washington's favorite tune. Woo! I did try to corroborate this, and there is absolutely no evidence of that. But J.P. Fraley definitely spun a tall tale and stuck to it, so I think I'll stick to it as well.
You'll hear when we get to it. There's no reason that it shouldn't have been George Washington's favorite.
That's
tune.
right.
It's very cute.
It is definitely that old, I couldn't find any specific evidence. That doesn't mean it does not exist, okay? All right. Mud Fence.
Delaney, everybody.
How lucky are we to have a dancer with us tonight? Genevieve and I also grew up doing Irish step dancing, which we have retired ourselves from. So we're so lucky Delaney's here.
We're so lucky that there's someone with young knees in the audience.
It's a young girl's sport. Well, nothing makes a tune rip faster than a dancer. This next one, we are returning to Scotland, and this is one of the very oldest Scottish ballads that we know of. It's, I think, Roud 316. It's called Queen Among the Heather, sung by many, many ballad singers over the years, including a few other Stewarts. I'm Ben Stewart, so. Sheila Stewart, Belle Stewart, both loved singing this song. It was first recorded by Alan Lomax, recorded a young woman singing this song in, I believe in Edinburgh or London, I can't actually remember, in 1953. So that was the first time we had a recording of it. I learned it from June Tabor, who does a very, very beautiful version of it. A cappella, it's always been an a cappella song, and we put it to music. So this is the first and only version put to music.
And we'll tell you a little bit about these crazy instruments you're seeing after this.
Oh, as I rode out one morning fair over lofty hill, moorland and mountain, it was there I met with a fine young girl, while I with others was hunting. Neither shoes nor stockings did she wear, neither shoes she had, nor had she a feather, but her golden and ringlets fair in the gentle breeze played round her shoulder. Oh, I said, fair lassie, why roam you lane? Why roam you lane among the heather? Well, she said,
My father's away from home, and he's herding of his ewes together.
oh, I said, fair lassie, if you'll be mine, and if you'll lie on bed of feathers, it's in silks and satins that you will shine. If you'll be my queen among the heather, well, she said,
Kind sir, your offer is good, but I'm afraid it's meant for laughter, for I know you are some rich squire's son, and I'm a poor lame shepherd's daughter. Oh, had you been some shepherd lad, herding you among the heather, or had you been some plowman's son, it's with all of my heart I would have loved you.
I've been to halls and I've been to balls, finest lassie that I ever did see. She was hiding all using the heather. So we both sat down upon the plain. We sat a while and talked together. And we left the ewes for to stray their lane, till I won my queen among the heather.
Ben Stewart, everyone.
Thank you.
Paul, before you run away with that, could you talk about it for a minute?
Oh, sure. So this instrument I'm playing here is called a theorbo. It's the largest member of the lute family. So it's a Renaissance Baroque instrument. It has 15 strings. The top strings are tuned much like a guitar, and then these bottom strings go down in a scale, and they're tuned. You play them like a harp, so you don't fret them with your left hand. You play them with your right hand, and you play everything else with your left hand and your right hand. And it's a lot of fun. Yes, question.
It's not unlike the balalaika, which, of course, came through the Slavic tradition,
Sure.
but the same Vikings,
Sure.
the same group of people
Sure. Yeah.
through Ukraine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the lute is an instrument family that, is from all across nationalities and areas. This original instrument, this is a copy of an instrument that was made in Rome in 1610. But a great maker named Klaus Jakobsen made a copy of it about 10 years ago in London. So, yeah.
Yeah. I hope this next number that we're doing will be familiar to anyone that it is. I'm going to hold up my hand last time through and invite you to sing along. This is the Skye Boat Song. And it's been made recently even more famous than it already might have been because I believe it's the theme song to the mentioned Outlander series.
You believe?
Yes, and I do. Can that be confirmed? It is, right?
Yes, it's confirmed. But this is a slightly different version.
I'm a terrible TV watcher, so I have to admit I haven't seen it. But anyway, yes, the story behind this song is after the Battle of Culloden, which you've been hearing about tonight, Charlie Stewart had to flee Scotland. He was wanted. And he headed back west towards those same clump of islands, the Hebrides. And Clan MacDonald, which had residency on the Isle of Skye, they generally throughout these rebellions were on the side of the government. But for whatever reason, she claimed later that it was just sympathy for Charles's situation. Flora MacDonald, who was a daughter of that family, took pity on him and arranged to help spirit Charlie from the mainland through Skye. He only spent one day there before he was taken on somewhere else. And he ended up back on the continent later for the rest of his life. She spent 2 years after being captured a couple weeks later in the Tower of London before she was granted clemency. But she played this really fascinating role. She hired a small rowboat and under the guise of having 2 servants, and one of them was an Irish woman named Betty Burke, who was really Bonnie Prince Charlie, dressed up in disguise, which is just a wonderful little bit of colorful history to sort of put a little pin drop on the end of Charlie's 1 year sort of actually being in Scotland. So this is Skye Boat Song. We have an a cappella vocal arrangement of it with some kind of funky harmonies. So it might be a little bit different than one that you've heard, but please, the last time through, when I indicate, if you would like to sing, we invite you to join us. I believe the words are going to be projected on the TVs if you need a refresher. If you don't know it, maybe you'll have learned it by then.
Speed, bonny boat, like a bird on the wing. Onward the sailors cried. Carry the lad that's born to be king over the sea to Skye. Loud the waves howl, loud the waves roar. Thunderclaps rend the shall ye sleep? Ocean's a royal bed, rocked in the deep. Flora will keep watch by your weary head. Speed, bonny boat, like a bird on the wing. Onward the sailors cry. Carry the lad that's born to be king over the sea to Skye. Burned are their homes, exile and death scatter the loyal men. Yet ere the sword cool in the sheath, Charlie will come again. Speed, bonny boat, like a bird on the wing. Onward the sailors cry. Carry the lad that's born to be king over the sea to Skye.
Please join in.
Speed, bonny boat, like a bird on the wing. Onward the sailors cry. Carry the lad that's born to be king over the sea to Skye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, so much. Yeah, well, I wonder.
They want to be able to hear it in the live stream.
Yeah, the live stream. This next number, again, a vocal number that we arranged. This is called The Burning of Auchindoun. This is an event that took place in the Highlands in 1592. And it was clan warfare. I don't know the greater history of what led to what led to what. It's pretty hard to trace after a while. You don't know who's retaliating for what anymore. I'm not sure they did. They were just getting back at each other for killing each other. This is very much not in the spirit as the governor of Edinburgh Castle was talking about. But yeah, I mean, a huge number of the songs that come down to us are accounts of battles and escapes and things like this, and that's the sort of events that history is made of course. So we too are grateful for those respites between where everyone comes together. But this is sadly the song of the burning of the castle of Auchindoun, which was the clan Huntleys, and the clan Macintosh burned it in retaliation for the Earl of Huntly killing the Earl of Moray, who was one of their allies, and then the Earl of Huntly showed up as they were burning the castle and laid waste to a bunch of their men. But this is a really fascinating ancient song that kind of captures the horrifying spirit of that.
As I come in by Fiddick side on a May morning, I spied Willie Macintosh an hour before the dawning. Turn again, turn again, turn again, I bid ye. If you burn Auchindoun, Huntly will heed ye. Heed me, or me, that will never fear me. I will burn Auchindoun ere the life leaves me. As I come plant your crops and tend your wings an hour before the dawn.
Thank you.
This next two numbers, two instrumentals. The first one is oddly called the Stool of Repentance. It's named for a practice that thankfully was done away with by the 19th century, but it was a practice of putting the person to be shamed on a stool in public display to be mocked and shamed by everyone that passed by. And it's from the oldest collection of written bagpipe music from Scotland, called the William Dixon manuscript. It's written between 1733 and 1738, and it is indeed the oldest Scottish bagpipe music that we have that's written down. And then we are going to go into a tune from Magdalena Sterling's 1796 self-published set of tunes that's called the who's Strathspey? The Earl of Elgin's Strathspey.
Earl of Elgin's Strathspey.
Yes. Let's see, I got tangled.
Colin Mattis, everybody. We are going to continue on with an old ballad. This is not an historical story. It is an old piece
Very,
of...
very old.
Very, very, very old. How old?
They're not totally sure, but it came back way past early before the 1200s, and it was likely brought over from Norway, actually, when there were a lot of Norwegians trading culture.
Which is another...
between the east coast of Scotland.
That's another fascinating thing. Fiona's been hired before to build programs around the Norwegian-Scottish connection, because there's a ton of shared music there.
This ballad was collected in Shetland, which is the farthest north island that did belong to Norway and was exchanged in a marriage and eventually became part of Scotland.
This is called Willie's Lady, and it's like many ballads, it is a very disturbing old tale. This became particularly relevant and poignant and disgusting to Fiona and I this past year when we were both pregnant. We now have 6-month-old babies at home this evening. But this story is about a young king who sails across the ocean, falls in love with a young bride, and brings her back. But his mother does not like the woman, and so she's a witch, and she puts a curse on this young woman that she will be forever 9 months pregnant. How
it
weird!
Really doesn't get worse.
It's like...
Yeah, right,
well, that would be the
being
other...
bayoneted, nothing.
So anyway, the story is about his wife, this young king's wife, and him plotting to figure out how they're going to learn about this witch's spell, and then how they're going to unravel it so that she might bear her baby son. And I guess it ends well. So
She has him.
she has the kid. Willie's Lady.
Set. 1, 2. Foam, he's wooed a wife, and he's brought her home. He wooed her for her long and golden hair. His mother wrought her a mighty care. A weary spell she's laid on her. She'd be with child for long and many's the year, but the child she would never bear. And in her bower she lies in pain. King Willie at her bedhead he do stand, as salt and tears down his cheeks do run. King Willie back to his mother he did run, and he's gone there as a begging son. Says my true love has this fine and noble steed, the likes of which you never did see. At every part of this horse's mane there's hanging 50 silver bells, and 10 there's hanging 50 bells and 10. This goodly gift shall be your own, if back to my own true love you'll turn again, and she might bear her baby son. Oh, of this child she'll never lighter be, nor from this sickness will she ever be free. But she will die, and she will turn to clay, and you will wed with another maid. Then sighing says this weary man, as back to his own true love he's turned again. I wish my life were at an end. Then sighing says this weary man, as back to his own true love he's turned again. I wish my life were at an end. Spoke his noble queen with a plan that she might bear her baby son. She says you must go down to the marketplace, and you must buy a loaf of wax, and you must shape it as a babe to nurse, and you must make 2 eyes all out of glass, and you must
must make it real to pass. And ask your mother to the christening day, and you must stand there close as you can be, that you might hear what she did say. King Willie, he's gone down to the marketplace, and he has bought him a loaf of wax, and he has shaped it as a babe to nurse, and he has made it real to pass. He asked his mother to the christening day, and he has stood there close as he could be, that he might hear what she did say. And how she spat and how she swore, she spied a babe where no babe could be before, she spied a babe where none could be before. Says who was it who undid the 9 witch knots, braided in amongst this lady's locks? And who was it who took out the combs of care, braided in amongst this lady's hair? And who was it slew the master kid, that ran and slept all beneath this lady's bed, that ran and slept all beneath her bed? And who was it who laced her left shoe, and who was it who let her lighter be, that she might bear her baby son? And it was Willie who undid the 9 witch knots, braided in amongst this lady's locks. And it was Willie who took out the combs of care, braided in amongst this lady's hair. And it was Willie slew the master kid, and it was Willie who unlaced her left shoe, and he has let her lighter be. And she has born of a baby son, and great are the blessings that be them upon, and great are the blessings that be them upon.
Thank you so much. Thank you again to our dancer, my goodness. I know it's getting late for a weeknight. I hope you'll join us for just 2 more numbers here. We're coming to the end, so I'll let Ben talk about this next one.
So this is the Mingulay Boat Song, which Sir Hugh Roberton actually composed in 1931. And this is about the island Mingulay in the Hebrides that had its last permanent inhabitant in 1912. And it was a place that had had permanent human inhabitant before that for years and years, hundreds of years. And it was written in the spirit of a coming of an end of this era where people could brave this very harsh lifestyle of living off a bit of fish and a few sheep on this barren rock. And he was very inspired by a folk melody, but he wrote the words. And we have really enjoyed singing the song the last few days preparing for this. So hope you will sing with us.
Again, the words will be on the screen toward the end of this, so join in the choruses as you become familiar. It's quite simple.
What care we how white the minches? What care we for wind and weather, when we know that every inch is sailing homeward to Mingulay? Heave your ho, boys, let her go, boys, swing her head round into the weather. Heave let her go, boys, sailing homeward to mingle Wives are waiting by the pier head, gazing seaward from the heather. Bring her round, boys, then we'll anchor ere the sun sets on Mingle Lake. Heave yo ho, boys, let her go, boys, swing her head round into the weather. Heave yo ho, boys, let her go, boys, sailing homeward to Mingle Lake.
Sailing homeward to Mingle Lake. Heave yo ho, boys, let her go, boys, swing her head round into the weather. Heave yo ho, boys, let her go, boys, sailing homeward to Mingle Lake. Heave yo ho, boys, let her go, boys, sing her head round into the weather. Heave yo ho, boys, let her go, boys, sailing homeward to Mingle
Thank you. I'll try to make this very brief. We can't express our appreciation for the collaboration of the Museum of the American Revolution and the St. Andrew's Society with us. It's just as exciting for us to be here, part of this event, as I think maybe it was for them to do this with the sword. We are, most of us, almost the 5 of us, are Pennsylvania natives from around the Philadelphia area, and we're based here and in Princeton, New Jersey. And it's just so fantastic to get to know another faction of the community through the museum here. So thank you so much to them for having us for this really historic occasion tonight. And just a very quick plug for us. If anyone would like any of our merchandise, we'll be here at this table afterward. We actually have a Christmas CD that is releasing tomorrow. And it got delayed in shipping, so we don't have any. But if you would like to see what's on it and put in an order for one, if you're interested in having a physical CD, come up and see us, and we have some bags and another album. So it's been so wonderful to be here with you tonight. Thank you again so much. Am I missing anything? I don't.
Sound.
Sound, yes,
Huge
you did.
thank you.
Thank you to our sound.
That's Ryan back there.
And to our at-home audience as well.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you for joining
Yes.
us online. Really special. As you can probably guess, we're all very into our Scottish heritage as well. I don't think this last song needs any introduction. And once again, please join along in singing.
Sorry, one more announcement I just remembered. We're playing in New York City tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to take the train, or you happen to live in New York and you're just randomly in Philadelphia, we're playing at St. Malachy's Catholic Church at 1:15.
Yeah, it's part of a free concert series. So if you know anyone there, come talk to me. I can tell you about that. You can tell them to go to it.
That at 1:15, and then get back here for the dinner tomorrow night.
And that is our Christmas concert.
All of a Thursday.
Yon bonny banks and by yon a bonny bay, where the sun shines bright on Loch Lomond, where me and my true love will ever want to gay on that bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. So
You'll take the high road and I'll take the low road, and I'll be in Scotland for you. But me and my true love will never meet again on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond.
We'll meet where we parted by yon shady glen, on the steep, steep sides of Ben Lomond, where deep in the purple hues the highland hills we viewed, and the moon was coming out of the gloaming. So you'll take the high road and I will take the low road, and I'll be in Scotland before you. Well, me and my true love will never meet again on that bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. Oh, babe, Charlie Stewart, how dear to thee, true heart, why could thee refuse thee protection? like a weeping birch on a wild hillside. How graceful he looked in dejection. So you'll take the high road and I'll take the low road, and I'll be in Scotland before you, when me and my true love will never meet again on that bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. Oh, the wee birdies sing and the wildflowers spring, and in sunshine the water's asleep, but the broken Arctic cans nae second spring again, though the wayful may cease frae their greeting. So you'll take the high road and I'll take the low road, and I'll be in Scotland before you, but me and my true love will never meet again on that bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. So you'll take the high road and I will take the low road, and I'll be in Scotland before you, but me and my true love will never meet again on that bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
again.
And that is how you have church on St. Andrew's Day. You guys, oh, my God.
Thank you for coming out.
I doff my bonnet, but my hair's all messed up. So thank you to those of you who've tuned in. I hope you'll be here next year, because we're going to do this again, aren't we? Yep. Same time next year. And so thanks to our live streamed audience. For those of you in seats, we have some secret stuff, but we're going to say goodbye to everybody online. Buy a ticket and come here next year. Thank you all. I heard with some encouragement there might be something like an encore, but you might want to encourage them.
This number together, I'll tell you a little bit more about it. But Hannah, a wonderful director of events here, who was my amazing contact this whole time, let me know that this was some director of this museum's favorite Scottish song. So this is a version of another very old Scandinavian Scottish ballad, of which there are many, 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 many variants, called The Cruel Sister. The story of this is there are two sisters, both in love with the same man, and he's more in love with one of them, and so, goodbye, dancer. Thank you so much for coming. Bye, Nancy.
Curtsy your way out, lass.
Never stop dancing.
Every Celtic band hopes that there's a dancer in the audience, so we were delighted tonight. Yes, so he's in love with one, but the other one, the elder sister, is so jealous of this that she kills her younger sister. She drowns her in the ocean. Her, bear with me, body washes ashore some ways away, and a harper comes upon it and decides to make a harp out of her. Out of her breastbone is the, I know. They're like, why is the director's favorite song? Goodness. All of these old ballads are this weird. So anyway, he makes this harp out of it, and he strings it with her hair, and he goes away to a foreign court, and he goes to play his harp there, but the harp starts singing by itself, and it tells the story. This is kind of hard to catch in the lyrics at the end of the song, of how it was killed and who it used to be. And it turns out that court that the harpist is playing at is the king who married the other sister, the one who killed. So she's ousted, and no one knows what happens after that. It's a very strange story, but there must be something about it that people are fascinated by, because there are over 500 variants of this song that have been collected from many, many nations, not just the Celtic ones. This is one of those melodies, and it has a little repeating refrain over and over again. Lay the bairn to the bonny broom, which doesn't really have anything to do with the song, but in these old songs, there were often these little catchphrases that everybody sort of knew, and they were just plugged into songs for people to join along with. So you'll hear that over and over again. So we hope you enjoy The Cruel Sister.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Please don't let this end your evening on a downer. Drink and be merry. It's a little bit mellow of a song.
There might be an after party at the Plough and
Yes,
Stars.
don't let it get you down.
There lived a lady by the North Sea shore, lay the bairn tae the bonny broom, twa daughters were, the bairn she bore, fa la 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 la. One was as bright as is the sun, lay the bairn tae the bonny broom, sae coal-black grew the elder one. Fa la 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 la. A night came riding tae the lady's door, lay the bairn tae the bonny broom. He travelled far to be their whore. Fa la 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 la. He courted one eye with gloves and ring, lay the bairn tae the bonny broom, but he loved the other above all things. Fa la 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 la. Oh sister, sister, won't you walk with me? Lay the bairn tae the bonny broom, and see the ship sail o'er the sea. Fa la 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 la. And as they stood on that windy shore, lay the bairn tae the bonny broom, the elder sister pushed the younger oar. Fa la 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 la. Sometimes she sank and sometimes she swam, lay the bairn tae the bonny broom, crying, sister, reach to me your hand. Fa la 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 la. And there she floated like a swan, lay the bairn tae the bonny broom, the salt sea carried her body on. Fa la 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 la. Twa minstrels walking by the North Sea strand, lay the bairn tae the bonny broom, they saw the maiden float to land. Fa la 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 la. He made a harp out of her breastbone, lay the bairn tae the bonny broom, the sound of which would melt a heart of stone. Fa la 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 la. Then he took 3 locks of her yellow hair, lay the bairn tae the bonny broom, and with them strung that harp so rare. Fa la 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 la. third string that those minstrels tried. Lay the bairn tae the bonny broom, then terror seized the black-haired bride. Fa la 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 la. The second string played a doleful song. Lay the bairn tae the bonny broom, the younger sister, oh she is drowned. Fa la 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 la. The third string it played beneath their bow. Lay the bairn tae the bonny broom, and surely now her tears will flow. Fa la 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 la. There lived a lady by the North Sea shore. Lay the bairn tae the bonny broom, 'twas daughters were the bairn she bore. Fa la 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 la.
Happy St. Andrews Day, everybody.
Happy St. Andrews
Thank
Day.
you. Sláinte.
The Chivalrous Crickets.
Thank you so much. I should say, if anyone would like to be on our email list to hear about future events, we have that up here, and you can find us on social media. Thank you. Good night.